Before I can get into that text, when I hear that is in reference to Abraham and Isaac going up the mountain, and that song, I think is Genesis, something like Genesis chapter 22. And when I read that text, I always wonder when Abraham and Isaac are together. Isaac is the younger son, is the son, and they get to the area for sacrifice. And when I read that text, it says that Abraham laid down the wood, and then he tied up his son. Anybody listening to me? I'm wondering what was going through Isaac's mind. What are you about to do? That text it just grabs me because I understand that Abraham is a man of faith. That's what it says. It was accounted to him as a man of faith. But I'm not so sure what must have been going through the boy's mind, because then he's every bit 9 or 10 years old. Old enough to run. Maybe dad has lost his mind. Because I think Isaac would have been looking around and says, we come all the way up here with the service and we don't have a goat. We don't have a pigeon. We don't have anything. And we know you brought that wood to sacrifice something. So maybe that text is a text that says, even at an early age, Isaac had faith in his father. Now, you just mull on that for a moment. That always gets me, because I'm going, what was he thinking? I know what Abraham was thinking. But maybe the faith resided in his father. Whatever dad is doing, dad's got to know what's best. Maybe that's a life lesson for us. Whatever the father is doing, it's best. Hello? See, sometimes you get to a place where you got to go, whatever the father's doing, I don't know what he's doing, but it's best. Today, I am going to talk about faith. I want to look at faith in its deeper parts. But before I open up that discussion, I want us to rewind and go back to last week. The sermon series this morning is dealing with that, how do we live our best life? And I told you we were going to deal in 4 areas in how to get to that best life. And I just want to rewind your memory. Remember last week when we read Hebrews 12, 1 through 13, we really got a whole overview of the main text. And the first thing we said last week was, the main part of last week was, surround yourself with former contestants. Remember? Surround yourself with people who will help you keep to your promise. Hello. I thought about it a little bit more, because I said, we have support groups. Now, I know y'all don't go to support groups because y'all are all stable and good. But there's some people who go to a support group because you want to know, is there somebody who has experienced what you're experiencing? You don't want somebody who say, I wouldn't do that if they've never tried it. You want somebody who say, I know the pull on your life. And so we have all sorts of support groups. We have eating support groups. There's some people who, it's just, I just got to eat. My anxiety come up. I just feel like a Twinkie. It's what I need. And I'm not talking about it because I know what it feels like. Me and Debbie have been on this thing, and she's been trying to keep me sane. But at nighttime, anybody here, just before you go to bed, you get hungry? What is that about? I've been telling Debbie when I go to bed, just before I go to bed, I'm hungry. And she will say, Dave, we just ate. But my mind don't know that. I will go, if you got them pantries where you got the cookies and the chips, don't them cookies and chips call you about 9:30? You go down there and them cookies and chips say, just get you a handful. And then you eat a handful of them and you say, I still ain't satisfied. I probably need to go to a support group. I need somebody who can help me to get over that. I can eat my dinner. She has my dinner. She is so wonderful. We eat dinner together about 6:30, and I feel full, and I'm thinking it's going to max me out. But when I'm going, I hit the bed about 9, but there's something jumps on me. So you just need a little something to get you through the night. Like I'm going to be up during the night. So there are support groups. So in chapter 12, verse 1, it says we're surrounded by so great a cloud of witness. And I related that to that there are those who are encouraging you to be successful. And you really can be successful when you have others who are helping you to become successful. You are an army of one, and sometimes that army ain't going nowhere. You tell you, say, yeah, and then I'm done. So we wanted to look at this as we need to surround ourselves with contestants, people who have been through what you've been. And that's what the Hebrew writer seems to say. Today, I want to deal with things you must reject. There's some stuff in our lives that you really need to consider dumping. I know most of you say, I'm out. But there's some stuff in our lives, and I say this in all sincerity. There's some stuff in your life don't serve you well. You are more broken and high energy and anxiety over things that I think you do have some control over. There's some stuff you need to drop. And I definitely, I would say there's some people, if they didn't help you in your spirit last year, consider putting some space in between them. That could be novel. Yeah. So I want to look at some things you must reject. And then following in the next few weeks, I'll go to how you must run this race. How do you run a race? What's it going to take? And then finally, in this series, is where do you look when you're running this race? What are you looking on? What are you looking at actually in 2019? What are you focusing on as this is going to be my goal for this year? I believe all of these will help as you become the best person that you can be. Well, as we've been reading chapter 12 and trying to start this year off with a bang, faith is important, and it comes as we're looking at this text. Chapter 12, do you have a Bible? Would you open your Bible to chapter 12? Ray, put my text back up there so I can show them. Chapter 12, just that first verse. Chapter 12, verse 1. I want you to see that text. Look at the very first word in that scripture. What is it? Therefore. Therefore is the very first word. And so many times when we read a text, we are so busy looking for the secret that we forget the obvious. And the secret of chapter 12, the opening of chapter 12 is demanding something from you right off the bat. It opens with the word therefore to us is a red light. The word therefore is a word that says stop. And it indicates that you need to pay attention to the preceding chapter or the preceding paragraph. The chapter before or the paragraph before. Just the word therefore. Because anytime a writer in our Testament are saying therefore, he's saying, since you know this, now you should do this. That's the power of therefore. Therefore, he's saying, look back at either a few verses before chapter 12:1 or look back at the whole chapter. In this case, he's saying, look back at the whole chapter. And chapter 11 is what he's referring to. He's referring to chapter 11. He says, therefore, after whatever was going on in chapter 11, we need to pay attention to what happened in 11. So from 11, you will know what to do. And he's saying this to other Jewish believers. And so I want to look at chapter 11 just to get the depthness of chapter 12. He says in chapter 11, he says, look at some things that are bubbling in chapter 11. And so if you would turn to chapter 11, verse 1. Now go back just one full chapter. Chapter 11, because he's saying, since we've gotten off, since he's saying, therefore, he says, go back and read the chapters, the verses, the book before you. And so in Hebrews 11, if you turn to Hebrews 11, 1 and 2, it is a verse that I grew up on. It was one of my family's memory verses. And it talks about faith. And he says in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, now faith is the substance. This is from the King James Version. I wanted to read it in the King James Version. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtain a good report. The writer of chapter 12 is saying you got to know this from chapter 11. The therefore is reflecting back to chapter 11. He's saying now faith, he's trying to explain whatever's going to happen in chapter 12, it is set up by chapter 11. He says, now faith is a substance of things hoped for. It's not things that you have. It's things that you're anticipating in the surety of God. So he says, now faith is a substance of things hoped for. It's the evidence. It's what happens when there was nothing that should rightfully, legally, lawfully have happened. He says, so faith is about trusting God to complete an action in your life. But you don't know how he's going to do it. And so he goes in chapter 11. So keep your chapter 11. I didn't put these on the screen because there was too many of them. But I want you to look in chapter 11. Even after that first two verses, there is this repetitious word of by faith. By faith. By faith. By faith. Let me show you. Look at verse 3 in chapter 11. Verse 3 in chapter 11, it uses the opening refrain. By faith, we understand that the universe was formed at God's command. Look what it says. By faith. He says, this is an action that God has put in us. And so we believe in the creation of the universe, the world. That's a faith leap. Even with science says, but there was actions before it came into place. We're saying no matter the action, the originator is God. Hello? So when I'm talking to somebody, say, well, Dave, you believe in creation? I said, sure I do. I'm one who believes in creation. And so they say, how do you, when there were dinosaurs and pterodactyls and megalodons and everything? I'm saying, okay, no problem with that. But God made them. They go, well, what about man living here for millions and millions and millions of years? The earth has been forming for millions and millions and millions of years. I go, the earth has been forming for millions and millions and millions of years. God started the forming. Are you checking me? And so the writer in Hebrews 11 says, now we believe this based on faith. And so you don't have to get into a drag-out fight with science by saying, well, I know we're right. And they're saying, well, I know we're right. I'm going, fine. Well, I just believe before the cause, there is a cause. That cause begins in the eternal Father. So the writer of Hebrews opens up and he says that by faith we believe this. Look at verse 4. Now he starts to call people by name who live their lives through faith. He says in verse 4, by faith, Abel. Y'all remember Cain and Abel? He says, by faith, Abel offered to God a better sacrifice than Cain did. And so basically, it was accounted to Abel that Abel came to God in faith saying, God, I give you my first fruits. He did that based on faith. When we give our tithes, our offerings to the church, we're giving it on faith. Well, God, you provided my money. And so, God, I do want to be a part of the kingdom's work, so I give my money in faith. Please don't give money out of trickery. Well, I want to be in the $100. Do y'all know the $100 lines and the $1,000 lines? Did y'all grow up like that, the $100 line? Oh, y'all, let me help y'all real quick. When I was growing up, you would have revivals. And when you would have a revival, after the preacher done sweated his suit out, they would have these lines in the church. Because he would say, now we want you to show your faith. And now when they say, show your faith, now he said, now over here, going to be $100 line. Those of you who can give $100 right now, come over to that line. Then in the middle, he said, now those of you who've been really blessed, and you can give $500, I want you to come down the middle aisle. And then those of you who just off the chart blessed, you're going to be in the $1,000 line. Let me tell you what's happening here. What you got is folks sitting in the pew who are just trying to not be embarrassed. They wanted people to see that I got faith, but they spend their rent money. They put into that pile their car note or whatever, but they didn't want to be known as I'm in a $100 line. No, I got great faith. So there were lines of people who gave money. That is not how God asked for money. That is not how the church raises its money. It should be willfully. It should be cheerfully. It's just, this is what I set aside. According to Chronicles, he says, set aside that which God has given to you. There is no coercion. So some people in church don't like to talk about money, but money is all through the scriptures. This isn't something just so we can get money, so we can just have money. But money, you know, it takes money to run your home. Hello? You know, wouldn't it be cool if you could tell your landlord, be blessed this morning? Now, I know it's the first, but you're going to tell it, now on the first, I just want to bless you. And I want you to know my note is paid in Jesus' name. Well, you're going to have a problem come about the 5th. Okay. All right. So anyway, before I go off, he says, so the writer says, by faith, Abel offered to God. So he's making reference that here's another action of faith. Look at the 5th verse. By faith, Enoch was taken from this life. Enoch was the brother who was so close to God in the Old Testament. Enoch does not experience death. It says, for they were so close that Enoch was no more. Look at verse 7. You know this character. By faith, when warned about things not yet seen in holy fear, Noah built an ark to save his family. We love the ark story, don't we? But that's a story of faith. Verse 8 is with Abraham. Verse 11 is by faith, Abraham. But verse 17 is by faith, Abraham. But by the time you get to verse 20, it says by faith, Isaac. Now here's his son. Blessed Jacob and Esau in regard to their future. 21, by faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of Joseph's sons. Verse 22, by faith, Joseph, when his end was near, spoke about the Exodus. Verse 23, by faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months. And after he was no ordinary child, but they were afraid of the king, so he was saved by faith. Then verse 29, by faith, people passed through the Red Sea. Verse 30, by faith, the walls of Jericho fell. Verse 31, by faith, the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed. And I like 32. 32 is a summary. He says, and what more shall I say? I do not have time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, gained what was promised, who shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword. All of that is in reference to therefore. Hello? All of that is saying, therefore, now that you know this, these were people who moved through faith, not just a blind faith. I do not recommend blind faith. I just don't. There's some people say, I'm just going to throw my faith to the wind. I don't recommend that. I go, your faith needs to have an object that it resides in. And it is, my faith is conditioned on the power and the principles of God. Not just, I just got faith. I just got faith. No, because what that's doing, you're trying to use that as an escape from responsibility. You have responsibility every day to do what God has given you strength to do. But he also says, and worship me. So when things are seeming to change in our lives, we don't get to run to, well, we'll be okay by faith. There are people who call the church, people who touch our church often, and not only this church, but other churches. And I have no problem with the poor. I have no problem with them. But there are people who try to profit from that. I've had people who call me and say, hey, me and my child and my wife, we don't have any gas, we don't have any food, and we've been trusting God, but we can't get to the one I chased. I chased some people who tried to fool me. I chased them in my car just like Dragnet. I was going after them. But they came and they said they put outside and broke my little heart. They said they had 2 little kids in the back, and I said, oh my God. And they said, well, Pastor, we haven't eaten in so many days. So I said, oh, let me take you to the store. I can get you food. And this is how they got me. They said, and we ain't got no gas. So I said, oh, no problem. I can get you some gas. Now, that was my issue. I should have dug a little deeper. But I went up to the corner store, got them some gas. I said, now follow me to the store, and I'll go in, because I actually knew the manager of the store. So I said, I can get you food. So just as we were heading to the store, they made a right turn. I said, oh, not today. You chose, I don't know, some spirit come over me. I said, but this ain't today. I just filled your car up with gas, and I was taking you to get food, and you're going to turn right and try to drive. I backed my car up. I swung that thing around. I was hoping don't no cops be around. And I chased them. They went down this side road. That was a dead end, thank you, God. He brought them to a dead end, and I jumped out the car, left my door open, and I said, you had no right to do that. And they looked at me and said, whoa. I said, oh, no. A woman started saying, I told you don't do that to him. I told you. I say, you got 2 children in the back of your car who just saw what you did. Is that what you're trying to raise and to give to society? People who will take advantage of other people. And he looked at me and said, well, I'm sorry. It was on that day I felt my hand clenching up. I just wanted to slap him in the car. I just wanted one good holy lean. I wanted a holy connection with him. But some say, you can't do it, Dave. You'll be in jail tonight. Church won't understand. But see, he played with the word faith. And he called the church and he said, church, I want to use a word that you are familiar with, but I'm going to use it to my advantage. Some of us, I want you to know, just by saying I'm a faith person, don't make you a faith person. Hold that. I was raised in church, and my mama was this, my father was this. I'm a person of faith. No, you're not a person of faith until you're walking with God. And as you walk with God, the more you walk with God, just like Enoch, the more you walk with God, the more God empowers you or reveals his truth to you. And in his revelation, your desire is not to walk around trying to heal things. Your desire is to please him. Oh, y'all ain't walking with me this morning. And so to walk in faith is not, can I get stuff? Walking in faith says, there is a relationship that I have that I want to honor God, and in honoring God, I respect others. Women, if you got a husband or a boyfriend, he needs to be a man of faith, not by words. I was teaching in Kansas City yesterday, and I said too many of us have the spiritual words, we have the religious jargon, but we don't have religious conduct. Just because somebody tells you, I'm a believer, I'm a faith person, don't you believe that they're a believer or a faith person? Because the words alone make nothing. A friend of mine says, too many people want the kingdom, but they don't want the king. I want the things of the kingdom, but I don't want the king. In order to walk in faith, I have transferred my dependency upon God, and it's not this showtime dependency. I'm so faithful. I'm so strong in the midst of my sickness. Oh, I prayed and somebody was raised. I love to see miracles, But it's not based on your faith or my faith. It's based on the mercies of God. And so the book of Hebrews chapter 12 is saying, now that you have seen these men and women who all use acts of faith in following God, he says to them, therefore, to the Jews, he says, you too should move your life through faith. And I want to challenge y'all to move your life through faith this year. Not quick get out of jail free. You ever play a Monopoly? And you all know that card, don't you? That card where you get out of jail free. And you can sell that card. You know, you find somebody who feel like they're going to be going to jail a lot. You raise the price on the card. Because they're going to need that when they come around the boardwalk. You want to collect. And so they want to get out, so you land on boardwalk. They say, I'm going to get paid here. So they want to buy your card. Let me tell you, brothers and sisters, you do not have a faith that gets you out of jail. You got a faith that if you got to go to jail, he will reveal himself inside of your jail cell, because maybe God needed to pull you over to get your attention. I know ain't nobody praying with me right now, but sometimes God has to allow your decisions to also be your best teachers. But I run to church, Lord, help me out of this. No, you got to deal with it. So this is how I want to wrap this sermon up, because it's talking about, therefore, since they had faith, you too must have faith. I've been reading a book that I want to recommend. Before I go there, look back at chapter 12. Go over to chapter 12, because there are two things we've got to bring up. In chapter 12, I need to say this. In chapter 12, go back to our main verse, which is only one verse. It says, therefore, when I was reading this text, it blew something at me. Do I have any? No, that's all right, because I'm not going to embarrass anybody. It says, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witness, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance, I like that word, the race marked out for us. This sentence that I looked at, I tried to break it down. The author uses the plural word for an individual in the construction of we and us. Did you see this? Therefore, since who? We. He didn't say me. He said we. And if I remember right, isn't we plural? So he says, we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witness. And then what's the next pronoun that he uses? Us. He says, let us. He didn't say let me. Are you checking this out? He said, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And look what he says again. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. There is something the writer was trying to tell us, that in the race of life, you cannot run it alone. You're going to need somebody or some group to run with. Now, I know we got some single people in here and some single people in here, and I don't mean single by dating and all that, but I know there's some people who said, oh, I'm a loner. I want you to know, even Lone Ranger needed Tonto. Now, why couldn't Lone Ranger have given Tonto at least a mask? At least, make it an equal opportunity. He should have gave him a mask too, so he could be the mask rider, but Tonto always had to be known. But Lone Ranger, you know what I figured out? Lone Ranger knew in order for him to put a dent in the crime, one man couldn't do it by himself. Even with Silver, he needed another man. And so he gets in connection. Oh my God, I got this. Gets in connected with somebody who's not in his race. Y'all didn't see that. Y'all, I know Tom, anyway. So what he found out, he says, maybe I can cross racial lines and still put a dent in justice. But I can't do it by myself. Sometime or even Long Ranger will be caught up. But I like it when old Tonto would come to the window in the jail and say, hey, Kemosabe. Basically, he's saying, look what you done got yourself into. You can't even get out of this, can you? I'm going to have to help you out of this. And Long Rangers never, ever, ever refuted Tonto's help. Because at just the right time, Tonto was the answer to him being victorious. You need to learn from this. There are some things that are going to come into your life. You are not going to be able to bust loose on your own. You're going to need the help of somebody to help you become victorious. Oh, you're sitting there and say, well, Dave, I don't want to depend on nobody. Oh, yes, you do. Because we have to depend upon God. And then God made the children of the world that we might become a family. That where you hurt, I hurt. Where you're blessed, I'm blessed. Where you're full, I'm full. When you're empty, I'm empty. It's a we thing. Well, so verse 12, verse 1 says, there are two things you're going to have to learn if you're going to be able to move through this world. And he says two things. First one, he says, you got to throw some things off. Just in that little verse, he says, there are some things that I want you to do in order to be successful. You're going to have to throw off some things. And I say, when he says lay aside every weight, he says throw off. I think those things that restrict your activity. Anybody here work out? We ain't even in the February yet. And y'all done quit. Y'all done quit already? No, I just kidding. But there's some things in order to work out. You can't work out with a full overcoat on, mittens, boots. You come in there, a scarf and everything. No, when you come to work out, you got to take all that stuff off. They even give you lockers in the back. So you come out there and you come out all slimmed up in your leotards. Guys come in there with them muscle shirts. I always hated going there because, some of them guys' biceps is this big, just boom, boom. I walk in there and my little arm shaking up under my shirt, and they just kind of look at, well, how long he going to be here? Because he going to have to be here a long time to get some of these guns here, Everybody can't have it, but they look so slim and trim. And now that women, woo, I've seen some women, I just look, oh my God, she could beat the daylights out of me. So I always call, hello, yes ma'am, how you doing? Don't want nobody to be mad. So you look at it, he says in 12:1, he says, there's some things that are needed to be thrown off so it won't restrict your activity. See, you can't be on that leg press all full up with all them clothes on looking like you're finna go out in the 0-degree weather. You got to get that stuff off. And then he says, secondly, he says, and lay aside every sin. I translate that. He says, things that mar your performance. There are things that will hinder your performance this year. There are some things that will hinder your performance. If you don't change some things in your life, there's some things that are going to hinder how you get through them. So he says those two things, throw off the things that are baggy clothes that restrict your activity. And he says things that mar your performance. He says these are the things that will stop a runner from racing a good race. Well, as I was saying it, and I just want to throw these out for your thinking. There are 10 things that I think you might want to get rid of this year. I've been reading a book by a lady by the name of Renee Brown. Pick it up if you can. The book is called Rising Strong. And what her premise is, she's a psychologist as well as a social worker. But she highlights in her book that all of us will fall to the ground, face front. She says, but it's not in how you fail. It's how you thought through what is it going to take to get up. I want you to think on this. All of us will have some failures, some things that happen in life that you don't like, and it will cause you to fall face down. You're not ready for it. But she says, but it's in the rising. That's why she calls this book Rising Strong, is in how you rise from the fall. And she gives 10 suggestions or guides, what she calls wholehearted living. I just want to share them with you. The first one is, in order to rise well, the first thing you're going to have to let go this year is let go of what people think. Let go of what people think. Some of us are tied in what we think people think about us. I'm afraid to go out because I may not have on the wrong thing. And if I go out and he got it on, or if I don't say the words just right, it's going to mess. I'm going to be embarrassed. Dr. Brown says, let go of what people think. And I'll add this. Most people ain't thinking about you. Do you not know with all the stuff we got going on in our world, you ain't got time to be thinking about nobody else. All that's kind of made up in your mind. Dr. Brown says, letting go of what people think. Most of your friends and even your enemies, they ain't thinking about you. So I said, going into this year, let that go. Secondly, it says, letting go of perfectionism. Anybody here, if you don't do it, it can't be done right. Dr. Brown says, you're living in a world that you are so busy trying to be perfect that you write everybody else off and you're killing yourself. This year, let go of perfectionism. You don't have to be perfect, just do your best. There's a difference. Do the best that you can. King says if you can't be the moon, be a star. If you can't be the star, he says be of the best on the reel. That's what he says. And if you can't be the best on the reel, he says just be the best of whoever you are. It's not about I got to be perfect. I got to do everything perfect. If you knew me, I don't do a whole lot of things very well. I just do the best that I do. So he says, stop trying to be something that you're not. It's killing you. Oh, I like 3. 3 says, let go of powerlessness. Hello? You need to push for resilience. Stop holding on to powerlessness. I'm so broken. I'm so this. I don't have this. I can't do this. I never went there. You're making yourself your own enemy. Stop teaching yourself that I am powerless. He says, remember he says, persevere. That's what he used in chapter 1. Be more perseverance this year. I'm going to push through. I'll just throw this out. We got to take our attention away from the national conversation. Hello? We need to move off the national conversation because the national conversation is killing us. Everything in the news is them or them. It's him or them. Somehow, you got to move beyond that. You got to move on off that click. And you got to see the beauty of the world. When I was in Kansas City yesterday, this was so cool. Kansas City, they caught me in a storm. I got there Friday evening. It was a storm. And I said to myself, what are you doing in Kansas City? Why did you tell these people you were coming? And I said, well, I'm here, got to be here. But I got up, I stayed at this hotel, and it was the coolest thing because it was one of those hotels where they didn't see, I was in this part of Missouri where they don't see a whole bunch of black people. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out. So I went into the cafeteria, into the little breakfast nook before I had to go to do my thing. I had to went in to fix me a breakfast because the breakfast come. And I'm having my breakfast. So I walked in there with my little outfit on. I seen people going, whoa. So I say, this could be an uncomfortable meal. But then the lady beside me, she says, are you waiting on the waffle iron? And I said, no, ma'am, I'm not going to do waffles today. I'm going to do the toast. She says, well, I was just taking it up and I could have stepped aside for you. I go, you don't mean it. I said, no, I'm not going to have a waffle. I'm good. Thank you. I'm going to have a piece of toast. Sat and got my meal down. It was great. Got my clothes on. I knew I had to be there by 10. And there was so much snow. It was bad. I kept saying, this is not cool. And I was walking toward the car, and this older couple, real older couple, they were so cool. The lady said, good morning. I said, well, good morning to you. She says, where you headed? I said, I got to go in this, I don't know if any have been to Lee Summit, Missouri. I was out by there. So she says, be careful wherever you're going. The roads are bad. And I said, yes, ma'am, and be careful for wherever you're going. And her husband was so cool. Both of them looked like, I don't know, could have been their 80s or 90s. But they saw this gray hair in my beard. They probably thought we were the same age. And they said, just be careful wherever you're going. It's bad out. And I got in my car and I sat down and I said, thanks, God. Because sometimes even in my stereotype, I'm thinking that they're looking at me cross. This woman is giving me a blessing. You got to get off the national conversation. The national conversation has us in a tizzy. Every time we want to talk, let's talk about, let's say. Let me tell you, move off of that. So that's what she says. She says, move off of powerlessness. Number 4, she says, let go of doom and gloom. That's real. Some of your stories are so gloomy. I'm expecting the stock market to crash next week. I always say, well, if it crashes, it's going to kill you too. Well, it's going to crash. I've been looking at the stock market and the stocks are down and we're just in for it. There's got to be another 2008. We got to be going back to it. Why we got to go back to that? Stop believing that God has called you to be a doom and gloomer. If anything, God has called you to encourage one another. When church folk have bought in that our only words are doom and gloom, we're reading the wrong text. He says, encourage each other as the days are going by. Number 5, she says, letting go for the need for certainty. That's a big one for Christians. You say you're faith people, but basically you say, I'm faith on what God can show me. I'm faithful on God being true or on God showing me the outcome. Let me tell you, life is not about knowing the outcomes. Life is about going on the journey. Hello? You'll waste a lot of your time trying to see what the outcome is going to be when you really can just take the journey. So he says, stop telling yourself you got to know the outcome before you can engage in it. Number 6, he says, let go of comparison. Let go of what you often do is comparing yourself with somebody else. We do that. You look at somebody and say, well, they doing this. Why ain't I doing this? Dr. Brown says that this year ought to be a year where you stop comparing yourself with somebody else. Boys and girls, no matter who you compare yourself with, you always going to come up short. I got off of Facebook. You ever notice everybody on Facebook is exemplary good people? They got exemplary kids. They are doing exemplary businesses. Churches are just bringing them in, and everything about their life, don't get to their marriage. Me and my boo, we are the happiest that you could ever have in Happyville. And you look at your bank account, you look at your house, and you be going, well, God, how come I ain't got this? Dr. Brown says, let go of comparison or comparison. Number 7, for those of you who really are big this way, she says, let go of exhaustion as a status symbol and productivity as self-worth. Translate. Stop trying to show people how long or how many hours you work to show how good a person you are. or when you come home, you so exhausted that you gotta go to bed. Your kids can't touch you. Your wife can't speak to you because you so exhausted. She says, stop that. Stop trying to show your worth by how much output you can command. If anything, show that you can get your work done early so you can have more to do with others later. So she says, stop showing that you are so exhausted. It must mean that you are a great person. You're not great by how much work you can do. Me and Debbie have two different workflows. My wife works from the moment she's up to the moment she drops. I don't. I take breaks. I take me a nap. I get me a nap in there. And see, by the time Debbie comes to bed, Debbie's like this. She can barely get in the bed. Sometimes I got to play Prince Charming and put her in the bed. I be going, you're a little bit size-worthy than you was 40 years ago. But we have two different clocks. Number eight, she says, let go of anxiety as a lifestyle. Some of you are anxiety-ridden. Your whole conversation is about how life has you so tormented. Every day, life has you tormented. Every moment, life has you tormented. And so your anxiety is off the chart. If they could get a medication to bring you down, but they can't because you are now living in anxiety. I'm saying you got to tell yourself life is better than this. And start enjoying your now. Get away from, I got to do this. I'm looking forward to this. Start living in your now. Number 9, she says, let go of self-doubt and supposed to. Many of us are filled with, I'm supposed to. I was supposed to be a brain surgeon. Not me. But many of us are living in a life of, I doubt myself. I'm not sure because I think I should have been this. Well, somebody tell them to come in. They can come in. Reggie, tell them to come in. And last, this is the biggest one, and I'll close. As I'm saying, let be some things that you can drop. There's some things that you can drop. This is my best one, and this is, I think Dr. Brown hits this one on the nail. She says, number 10, one of the things you might want to get rid of is letting go of being cool and always in control. I'm going to say it again. Let go of being so cool. And I ain't talking about Breeze. And always in control. This is how I'm going to finish this. Some of y'all afraid to laugh, and I dare you to come to my church. Because you come in here looking like the world is horrible. Your life is pitiful. And all you want to sit in here and do is like, and when they say, well, I cut a little joke every now and then. But my aim is Christianity is not about sadness. It's not about brokenness. It's about wholeness that God is doing in us. Some of you are afraid to laugh. Maybe this year you need to break out of being so cool, so in contain of yourself that you go ahead and give a big smile. And then laugh from your belly. Laugh way down. Until you feel that the Bible says that laughter does bring joy to the soul. Your soul needs to be released so you can feel the freshness of the morning, the beauty of the day, the beauty of your friends, the beauty of books, the beauty of art. You need to let go today. I think Dr. Brown was dead on. She says, let go of being cool and always in control. There's some things you don't get to control. It's not for you to control. It's what God wants to do. Are you checking with me? There are some things you need to let go. If any of those 10 are talking to you, work on it this year. Stop worrying about what people think. Again, most people ain't even think about you. If you are so caught up in anxiety, that's get off of the national dialogue. See the ability of touching the world right before you. God is doing something in us, and he says, then let us run the race that is set out before us. And all that says is, get busy doing what he made you to be. Get busy doing what you need to be running your race, not my race, not Elmira's race, not Robert's race. You need to be running a race that God established in you. He says, get busy running your race. You don't have time to sit with another group and say how bad and who ain't and what they aren't doing. And if they would have and they had let you check that list out. It's not them, it's you. This is the year for you to take charge of your life so you can be the best you can possibly be. Let us lay aside every sin and weight that so easily beset us. Let us run this race that is set out before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of faith, who basically looked at the cross and he says, despising its shame, I went there regardless of what the people were going to say. He was not trying to be a perfectionist. He wanted us to know that we can follow his lead, be the best that you can be. So my brothers and my sisters, as we get ready to go out of this sermon, next week I'll pick up the third section. But let go of some stuff that's not serving you. Some of you thought I was going to come in here, rail your mates and your friends. That's not it. I said we need to get personal. Because if not, you're going to walk through this year carrying some of that stuff. And it's going to poison not only you, but everybody who's around you. And then eventually folk don't want to be around you. Come on, stand with me. Here was a word of invitation to you this morning. My brothers and sisters, as we look